All right, welcome everybody. So tonight we are talking about goal setting. We might be able to touch on motivation as well, and just a PSA, if we don't get to motivation, make sure you tune in to tomorrow's Shooting Stars call. I will be talking about motivation more at length then and there. So tonight we're going to be talking about goal setting. A little bit different approach. I know there's so many different approaches when it comes to goal setting, and it's something that we've all done at some point in some degree in our past, even in our Juice Plus businesses. Tonight I want to take a little bit of a different approach. Definitely want to hear your feedback in that process. Again, download the worksheet if you haven't already. It's linked on our Facebook group, and follow along. Know that as we go through that, I'm going to move relatively quickly through it. It's not intended for you to really sit and reflect tonight. I want you to kind of take some time on your own to do that when you have real time to devote to your thoughts and that process. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through the intention behind it and the psychology behind it as well. So when we're talking about goal setting, one of the most important things to keep in mind is that it is a plan of action. Like when we think about setting goals, it is for us to get into action, to move towards an outcome, ideally that a result that we're hoping to achieve. But more so than that, I want to leave you with the thought, if nothing else, if you gain nothing else from tonight, I want you to think that goal setting is so much more than the action that you're getting into and the things that you're doing to achieve a result, but the person that you're becoming in that process. And when you look at the psychological benefits of setting goals, it's very clear that we can gain many benefits from the process of goal setting and working towards goals, whether we hit the goal or not. Am I right? Like we've all been there. We've all had goals on the horizon that we've worked towards, and maybe we've hit them or maybe we haven't. But in that process, we've learned things. We've grown in new ways. We've adopted new skills. We've met new people. We've seen new things. We've tried new things. And so sometimes we can be a little bit self-defeatist when we think about goals, because it's all about the outcome. It's all about the results. And when those don't match our desire, sometimes we think it was all for naught, right? And it's not. We tend to forget all of the things that we gained in that process. So one of the first things we're going to do is get really clear on where you are today. You can use that worksheet to reflect on the entire year, or you can come back to this periodically and maybe do it monthly or quarterly and ask yourself these same questions. So before looking forward into the future and setting our goals, I want us to look backward and reflect on what you already have accomplished, what you have already achieved. So that first sheet there that you see on page 1 is going to ask you questions like, well, let me pull it up actually, and we'll look at it together. So let me share my screen in case you do not have this. So the first couple questions here on page 1 are all about the positive experiences from your last year, month, or quarter. Okay, so you can use any period of time to answer these questions. The first one is, what are the wins or accomplishments that you've achieved that you're proud of? This does not have to be business related. This can be in any area of your life, something that you are proud of that you did achieve. Again, year, quarter, or month, however you want to kind of approach this. Since it is a new year, I do recommend doing it for the year, and just keeping in mind that you can always come back to this other times. And then in that same light, thinking about those things that you accomplished or achieved, specifically what helped you succeed, what helped you do that? What are some of the things that you either did, the actions that you chose to take, the decisions that you made, the skills that you learned, the way that you behaved, the habits you adopted? What are some of the things that specifically helped you succeed, looking back? And again, this can be anything, you guys. It's also very telling if there's nothing that comes to mind. So don't worry about that. I'm gonna go over that as well. Okay, moving to the next question. What are some of the important lessons that you learned? This could be related to the accomplishments that you achieved or not. Maybe in pursuit of certain goals that maybe you didn't accomplish or achieve, you learned something in that process, or maybe just outside of it, maybe through books you read, or courses you attended, or relationship, it's whatever, things that you may have learned in the last year. And then in what areas did you grow? What comes to mind? Areas that you grew either personally and or professionally and or spiritually. Ways that you've grown that have led you to where you are right now. Like right now in this moment, looking back, reflecting. And then you can just add any other positive insights looking back. So anything positively reflective for you that you're happy about, that went well for you this year. Maybe related to your prior goals or not. Okay, so moving on, again, please consider taking more time to do this, to like really dig into these questions. You might need a full page for each of them if you're gonna really sit down and do it right. But just know that you can do that. You can come back to this, okay? But we're gonna move forward to page 2. And in that same light where we're looking back, before we look forward, I want you to think about maybe the struggles that you've had. So these can be external, like surface level struggles, like maybe some tactics or time management, what have you. Or they can be more internal, deeper struggles. Maybe it's a like true source of pain that you've experienced this year that can be turned around and used for a purpose. Sometimes I think you guys hear me say these kinds of things all the time, especially if you follow me on social media, but like, it's so true. We tend to only look at the positive, and we tend to only look at the things we are doing. And there are so many more lessons to be learned in the negative. Maybe not more, but there are so many lessons to be learned in the struggle. There are so many things to learn about ourselves, about what we want, what we don't want for ourselves, based on our experiences, whether they're good or bad. And so I don't want to ever like overlook or negate the struggles and the learning experiences that can come from those at the same time. So, taking a look at these questions, you can answer, where did you struggle? Again, maybe it's surface, external, maybe it's internal struggles that you've had. What pains or problems have you experienced that you want to turn into a purpose? Not all of them will we want to turn into a purpose. Some of them will whisper a nudge for us to do that for years and years and years before we get up the courage to actually use that pain for a purpose. I'm speaking from experience. Sometimes it's just a sign that we have room for growth. Maybe it could be as simple as like social media, perfect example. Surface level, external struggle, but because I struggle with it, I know it's somewhere I want to grow. Okay, so where do you want to change? What do you want to change? Where do you, in this moment, looking back, not want to repeat this year? So when we start to look forward the next year, where do you want to be a year from now? What do you wish will change? What do you want to change? What do you want to be different? How do you want to grow? And expanding on that question, the next two, how do you want to be more present, more courageous, more clear, more confident? These are just some examples of the kinds of questions that I want to reflect on for myself personally, for the clients that I want to work with, because so often we get so caught up in the things we want to do the things we want to accomplish, the things we want to achieve, we're forgetting to ask ourselves, am I being more present? Am I being more courageous? Am I being more confident in my life? Yeah, working towards those outcome goals will help us be those things, but maybe not. Maybe they actually steal our presence. Maybe they actually rob our confidence. So those are just questions to ask yourself how you want to be. Maybe you could fill in the blank in any of these. Like the next one, which is areas of your life that you want to experience more joy. Because what's it all for, if we're just miserable the whole time? So do you want to experience more joy at home, at work, in your Juice Plus business, at the gym? I don't know. It's a thought. Great question to ask though, right? Because it's important to look at all the struggles, but also to ask yourself, where can I be more joyful in this? Because we are commanded to rejoice in all things, even in the struggles. So I'm going to give you just one more minute and then we're going to move forward. Are this reflection, is this something that you guys typically do in your goal setting process? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, feel free to unmute and speak up. That'd be great.
I was just going to say a little bit because I have a planner that I love that has some of this, but not all the questions. So the questions about going back are really good. It's more just kind of thinking about where's your heart at and, what do you want to see? So some of this stuff is in there, but I feel like this is really good to go back. And it's never been like that for me. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And Jackie, it reminds me of Catherine Lee, like when we were at the ranch and we did that, all the life areas in the circle.
Huh?
Those are the things you're going to put at the top and then figure out the process for the outcome. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Girl, no, that was way too far back for my
notes. Well,
but I trust you. I'm sure I have it in my notebook somewhere. I just don't have it.
I'll have to take a picture of the ultimate source because it's in there. It's really good. It's exactly what you're talking about.
I never actually worked all the way through it at all. I do have that. I'm going to look it up actually.
Yeah, it's actually all in there, exactly what you're talking about. Sorry, it's noisy upstairs.
Well, it is all based on psychology, so I'm not surprised. Yeah, that Catherine Lee and I are on the same page. Okay, so moving forward, I want to, before we get into like actual goal setting, I want to talk about behavior change. So this little image here, let me see if I can make it bigger for us really quick. There we go. Is that gonna work? Yeah. Okay, so these are just 3 layers of behavior change. Obviously, behavior change is a very complicated topic inside of psychology, but to keep it simple for goal setting, I want you to think about 3 layers of change or goal setting or the process of becoming who you want to be. Okay, so the first outer layer is going to be the outcomes. This is you changing your results. This is, results driven, achievement oriented goals. This is typically how we set goals. Yeah. Like, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? What are the results I'm looking for? We fail. Sometimes we do, actually. Sometimes we do think about the second layer, which is the processes or the systems or the habits or the actions, the activity that's going to get us, from point A to point B, or the outcomes. So that's the second layer, is the process change. And then the third layer, which I really just want to hit home for you guys, is identity. This is where real change happens. So all day long, we can focus on what I want to do in terms of achievement, but until we can get into the meat of that identity and change the way we believe and the way we identify ourselves, that change won't stick. It won't last. So it's like telling a smoker. A smoker has to identify that they are no longer a smoker in order to never smoke again. So they can't say, I'm a smoker I'm trying to quit, they say they have to identify as I am a non-smoker. So when you're thinking about your goals, here, let me move this forward really quick. Oh, here we go. So when you're thinking about your goals, you know, step one, outcome goal is, what do I want to get? What do I hope to achieve? What are the results I'm looking for? So this is where we talk about titles and ranks or income. It could even be anything else related to that outside of Juice Plus, right? So what is it that you want to get? What do you want to hope to achieve? That's the surface level of our goals. Going a step further, how will you do it? What processes are you going to take? What actions are going to get you to the get? So what do you need to do? And then that deeper layer is B. Who do you wish to become? And in that process, who is that person? What kinds of activities do they do? And because they are that type of person and they do those type of activities, what are they going to get? Does that make sense? So it's outcomes, processes, identity, get, do, be. So again, this is just the layers of behavior change. So I'm going to go back to our goals, keeping all of that in mind. And you're probably not going to fill this out just yet. I do have a second sheet here that'll make this a little bit more easy. But once you do get a little bit more firm grasp around the goals, wait, can you guys see it? The map out your goals. Okay. This will help. So when you're mapping out your goals, so based on who you want to be, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And what is that going to get you? What will the outcome be? What's the potential goal that you're going to hit? The most important part of this process is, yes, you're going to create outcome goals. There's nothing wrong with that. That is an important part, like psychologically, of the goal setting process. But if that outcome goal doesn't align with who you are and what you want to do, how are you going to get there? And in that decision making, right, when you're setting your goal, it's important for you to be really clear of like, I want to achieve this, but if that means I have to become this person or do these things, do I really want to achieve that? And vice versa. I want to achieve that because I want to be that kind of person. Okay, so I hope that's clear on that. Again, this is just an overview, so you don't have to have just one goal. But when you do make goals, think about how each of these are going to align with who you want to be or who you are. We don't have to change who we are. Okay, so I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when we talk about like, who do you want to become in the process? Like, that's not a bad thing. Of course, we all want to grow, but it's also not a bad thing to identify who you are and the core values that you want to continue to embody. And if your goal is going to put those in jeopardy or not, or if they're going to enhance them, or if they're going to bring about new qualities. So think of it like, let's say one of the things you want to be is more of a leader. Maybe you want to step into a leadership role. What are the kinds of things that you have to do to behave and do things like a leader? And then that's going to lead you into a leadership role. Or maybe you want to be more confident. Maybe that's a goal of yours, is to become more confident. You want to be a more confident person. What are the kinds of things you have to do that are going to help you build your confidence? And in that process, what are the goals that you can achieve as a confident person? Or maybe you want to be a public speaker. I want to be a public speaker. That's something I aspire to be. What do I have to do to become a public speaker? And then what are the outcome goals? I'm not going to go speak on stage if I don't identify as a public speaker. See, okay. So that all makes sense. So now we're going to talk more in depth around like the psychology of actually goal setting. I just want it to be clear that like goal setting isn't just about hitting a goal and doing the actions even. It's about who you're becoming in that process and making sure that there is alignment there. So the good news is someone that is goal oriented or goal focused is going to be more likely to try new things, have a more positive outlook on learning and growth, and perceive failure not as like personal failure or defeat, but as like a learning process and a temporary setback. And so, are you a goal-oriented person? Or, which I find all too common, are you the type of person that avoids goals altogether? Because that's scary. So when we're thinking about goal setting from a psychological point of view, you know, I want to talk about what it does in our brains first. There's tons of neuroscience around, you know, challenging ourselves and the underlying like neurochemical processes that happen when we have a goal. The thing is, you guys, like, here, I can stop my share for this, is we don't just like rely on goals for the sake of goals. Like, it's not just a target for us to be more productive towards. It is actually an opportunity for us to create a physiological response that's going to motivate us into action, which is cool, right? So, okay, wait, I lost my share here. There we go. Okay, so moving on to the next page. This is something you don't have to fill out entirely like right now. Again, I just want to get through the gist of it with you. Hold that thought. Too many tabs open here. Why is it that my iTunes tab like won't shut? Does anybody know? It's really annoying. Nobody knows? Okay. Okay, hold on. Closed the wrong tabs here. Okay, so when we're talking about goals, there's 4 steps to goal setting. The first one is making a plan. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't have a clear target, right? So writing out your goals is super important. There's obviously a lot of psychology behind the power of that. I think it's like 60 or 80% greater chance of actually achieving your goal if you write it out. That initiates the reticular activating system, which we've talked a lot about before, but just briefly I'll go over because I think it's an important reminder of how our brains work when it comes to goals. So in our brains, we have this thing called the RAS, or reticular activating system, and it helps us by filtering out all of the information that we are intaking every day, like hundreds, millions of input. And we're filtering out to the things that are actually important to us based on what matters to us. When we set a goal, we turn on that reticular activating system to now pay attention to all the things in our environment that might be important for us to reach that goal, right? So a great example is when you're pregnant and you're going to have a baby for the first time. And before that, you never noticed the types of strollers mom pushed or the car seats that they had or any of that stuff. Like, you didn't care, like, what, it didn't matter. But now it mattered because you need to know what kind of stroller to get and you need to know what kind of car seat mattered, right? It's the same thing in our business. If you're just kind of willy-nillying, or yeah, that's the word still, right? If you're just kind of going about our business just like, you know, if it happens, it happens by chance, that's fine. That's how it's going to happen. But as soon as you set a goal and you tell your brain, this is important to me, this matters to me. Your brain is now going to notice, you're going to pick up on conversations. You're going to hear them differently. You're going to notice when people are saying things that Juice Plus could be a solution for, or a business opportunity. You're going to hear things differently. You're going to see opportunities differently. You're going to walk into businesses and be like, oh, they could benefit by sharing Juice Plus here. Or you're going to, I don't know, pay attention to social media differently. Everything's going to be different. You are going to have a different filter in the way you see the world and the way you operate, because now your brain knows this is important to me. Okay, so if you haven't set a goal in the past, I want to encourage you just to try it out. See what it does. See what it turns on inside your brain, and maybe it could be a huge differentiator for you in this coming year, just to have had set that goal. Okay. So the second thing is to explore your resources. So when you are thinking about, so the first one was to make a plan and write it down. So just write down your goal. And then we're going to get to the planning part. The second is to explore your resources. So that means, you know, thinking about what are your resources to help you get to that goal? What calls can you get on? What training events can you go to? What books can you read? What podcasts can you listen to? What mentors or coaches can you seek advice from? Realizing that from where you are to where you want to be, there's a gap. What's going to help you fill that gap? In knowledge, in resources, in trainings, right? Like, you're here, this is what you've done and you're capable of so far. How can you fill that gap? And explore the resources that can help you bridge it. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be accountability. So we tend to perform better when people are watching over us. If you've ever hired a personal trainer, you can attest to this, right? Like, you work out way better when you have a personal trainer watching your ass, literally. And so it's the same thing in our business or in any other venture that you're going on, whether it's, you know, health related one or business related one or anything in between. I recommend just partnering up with somebody, whether it's your sponsor or a business buddy, or an outside coach or mentor, somebody that can help you see things differently, right? Like, that's the benefit of a third party person, is they can say, well, actually, maybe you should say it this way, or have you ever thought about this resource, etc. Or, what are you doing today? What are you doing this week? Haven't heard from you in a while. Okay. So working closely with somebody that can help hold you accountable is the third thing. The fourth is to use rewards and feedback. So you're going to see that on your sheet there. It's going to say, like, what rewards are, you know, what will your rewards be, how your actions be rewarded. And it's really important that we are psychologically continuously getting feedback based on our actions, especially if you're trying to go at this alone. Make sure that there are ways that you are getting rewarded or feedback from a third party person, from a team, you know, all those little small wins, and you get to decide what that looks like for you. So if you have like a daily DMO, for example, even just the check marks, you guys, our brain releases a dopamine hit for a freaking check mark. Okay, so write it down and make a check mark. Like, that's a super easy reward that you can do. Or a highlighter, like I love to highlight. That's like, my brain loves colors. So what is your reward, and what is your feedback in that same process, that you are making steps in the right direction? Okay, so looking at this, thinking about, number 1, what is your outcome goal? Write it down. This is the results. This is the thing you want to do and achieve. The second is, who do you want to be in that process? What values do you want to embody? Do you want to be more confident? Do you want to be more bold? Do you want to be a leader? Do you want to pursue public speaking? Or what is it? Do you want to be a good listener? Do you want to ask good questions? Do you want to be more empathetic? Do you want to be helpful, compassionate, whatever? Who do you want to be in that process, and what values are important to you as you're working towards that goal? Because if they're not in alignment, you're not going to get there, or you're going to get there and you're going to feel icky about it. So you have to make sure you're balancing both what you want to achieve and who you want to be. both, marry them together. From there, let's break it down. Based on those 4 things I told you, making a plan, exploring your resources, being accountable, and using rewards and feedbacks. What are 3 main performance goals and habits that can help you get to the outcome goal? So performance goals, think of it as like action or the process in that layer of behavior change. What is the process goal? So here's just an example. Maybe you want to reach out to 1 person every single day this year. 1 person. It's 365 people in 1 year. Or maybe it's 5 people a day. Or maybe you want to make 1 social media post a day or 5 a week. Or maybe you want to host 1 event a month. Those would be performance goals. That's part of your process or your system. The good news is you can always rely on the process. You know that by continuing to do the process over and over, you're going to eventually get to the goal, as long as you do it consistently. So what is your process goal or your performance goal? And then in that, what are the habits that you need to practice to reach those goals? So think of habits as like super small things, like getting on this call, for example. The things that we think are so easy that they don't matter. Those are habits. The things that like we want to not even think about, that is a habit. I don't even want to think about that I make a social media post 5 days a week. Like that has become a habit. Or in conversation, I always ask these kinds of questions. It's just habit. Okay, so what kinds of habits can you build upon that are going to help you get to those performance goals or those process goals of talking to 1 person a day or 5 a day, that is going to help you get to that outcome goal, that final outcome goal, and work backwards or build upwards. And then you can fill in there, who will you be accountable to in that process? And how will your actions be rewarded? Are you going to get a title reward? Are you going to do the check mark system? Is there some other DMO process that you're following? You know, as much as I didn't care for Teamzy, it's genius because it had that built-in reward system for us, right? We had to like meet our marks every day. We can create that for ourselves as long as it's in alignment with how I want to live my day and what goals I want to reach, right? So what does that look like for you? Maybe it's going to the gym. No, that's a habit. How are you being rewarded? Off there. There we go. Okay, and then start date, goal date. This is important, you guys, especially if you have not set a goal in a while, myself included. Okay, so I'm not calling anybody out. I'm calling myself out. I have not set a goal, okay? But when you do, the end date is less important than the start date. I'm going to say that again. The end date is less important than the start date. Why? The start date is your decision to go for it. It'll come. You don't know when. We don't really have that much control over that. I wish we did. I'd be a freaking millionaire by now if I could guarantee that. I can't. Nobody can. So why are we like demanding it of ourselves? Like, let's just get over the end date. We'll put it on there. It's great to have. It's good for like planning purposes because we can, break these things down, but really, as long as you're committed to that goal, to that person you want to be, to the habits you want to create, it'll come. And guess what? If it doesn't come, who are you becoming in the process? What are you learning? What struggles are like you gaining grip from? Where are you finding to all of those first initial reflective questions that we ask? That's really the win in this process. And when you can shift your mind there, that the outcome is just the outer layer. It's who we are becoming That is the most important part. It's who our identity is. Our identity is not our outcome. I'm sorry. Our identity is not our rank. It's not our paycheck. It's none of that. And if it is, you need to check yourself, because it's not. That will only last so long and get you so far. And then what? Because it's got to end somewhere. Burn yourself out. You lose who you are. Super unmotivated, right? Like, we don't want that. Now, I'm not saying that this business or anything else goal worthy is easy. That's not what I'm saying. It's not. In fact, if it's too easy, it's not a good goal. It's not motivating. We won't have time to talk about motivation tonight. We will talk about that tomorrow on the Shooting Stars call. I hope you guys will tune into that at 2:30. But the thing that I want to leave you with is to be motivated towards our goals, it has to come from a deeper place, number one. It has to, or it doesn't last. And if it does, it feels like yucky in the process. Okay, we don't know who we are. It's what are we even working for? All of those things. The second one is we have to choose them in commitment, with commitment. It's commitment that is going to keep us motivated, because motivation, all it is commitment to do something. Yeah, I'll be done in like 2 minutes, maybe 5. So if we want to stay motivated towards our goals, really we need to just choose to stay committed to them and to stay in action towards them. And the action will actually, or the motivation will actually follow the action. But first comes the commitment, because we don't always feel motivated to do it, right? So when we don't always feel motivated, we still choose to do it because we're committed to, and then surprise, surprise, we feel motivated again. It's cool how it works like that. I will talk more about that tomorrow. Any questions about this goal planning sheet for tonight, though? Any insight anybody wants to share? Aha moments? Okay. Well, yes, take some time to go in and fill it out with more reflection and thought and insight. Tune in tomorrow at the Shooting Stars call at 2:30. I will likely talk more about motivation. I might touch on some of this too, but I'd love to see you guys on there. All right, thanks for tuning in. Please do let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and #replay if you get to catch this then.